Hello everyone. I'm Keepa Pape. I'm from Arunachal Pradesh in India, and I have completed my masters in pharmacognosy and phytochemistry. And after that, like I was very interested in research, but I had to join a job due to some personal reason. I was planning to pursue PhD right after my master, but my plan got changed. There was something the plan got changed, and yeah, and this is okay, so most of the people here don't know about the existence of Arunachal Pradesh, and in fact, in India also, most of the people don't know where Arunachal Pradesh is. Like when I first came to for further studies in Delhi, people ask me like, "Are you a foreign student? Are you from China? Are you from Korea?" So I got that questions a lot of time because in India also, most of the people don't know that Arunachal is in India. So Arunachal is a place in India. You can see in the map. Uh, See, do you see on the screen Arunachal Pradesh? Hello? Am I
Yes, we do, we do.
okay? Okay, so this is Delhi here, right next to this purple color and red color. I pursued my both bachelor's and master's from Delhi, and my home place is Arunachal Pradesh. It's here, the easternmost part of India, and also like Arunachal Pradesh shares a international border with four international borders with China, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Tibet. Tibet is basically part of China now. So like in Arunachal also like oh wait, the screen. I don't know why. Let me go back. Okay, here. So in Arunachal also the people from Tawang area residing in Tawang area, they share some traditional cultural similar to Bhutan, China, Tibet, to those countries. And people from this Changlang, Tirap, and Longting, they have similar cultures as Myanmar. So like Arunachal is very diverse. In short, like Arunachal is very diverse. It's like mini India. And let me go to my next screen. So, if we talk about the cultural diversity, Arunachal, as I mentioned, Arunachal is very diverse. It has 26 major tribes with more than 100 sub-tribes. And also the language, we don't have a written language. We only have oral, spoken language. So most of the traditional knowledge and everything is passed down on oral communication only. Like there's no written language at all for, and the reason being is like most of the people, even in fact my mom and dad both are from same place, but because they have different surname, so their dialect is different. So in the image you can see, wait, in the image you can see this is the tribe from Nisi women wearing traditional attire. And in Arunachal most of the traditional houses are made of bamboo. Bamboo is like very important part in Arunachal Pradesh because it is used in making homes, crafting, and like the local spices. Everything is made out of bamboo. And also, I have taken photo of my food when I was at home. See, the people of Northeast India, mainly Arunachal Pradesh, we consume our main diet is like we boil everything, even if it's a non-veg chicken, pork, or everything, anything, we boil it with our own spices. And we consume lot of green leaves, like green leaves will be there in every plate every day. So you can see in the plate that we have boiled chicken with our local rice, red rice, and bamboo shoot mixed with this chicken and some green boiled veggies. And also I don't know why this is, I think, and also like people in Arunachal Pradesh, if you go to hiking or some other places, most of the people, they're so like people in Arunachal Pradesh, most of them uses this green leaves for packing, for fooding, and for anything. Like you don't need to get the plates from the market. Like if you're going to jungle, then you will get it in the like you can just use any leaves. They have like lot of knowledge about which plant to use, which plant is poisonous. So it's very convenient for people if you like. Arunachal people if we are going for hiking or anything. Also, as I have mentioned, that bamboo plays a very important part in Arunachal Pradesh. You can see uh, we use bamboo for cooking also. This is the bamboo shoot in the third picture. So, bamboo shoot is like in most of the culture in Northeast India, this bamboo shoot can either be used in this raw form or in fermented form or in dried form, or we make pickle with this with chicken or anything with green chilies. Like it has a lot of uses bamboo. Also, we make lots of craft with dried bamboo. This is the bamboo shoot, the young ones. And after the matured bamboo is dried, make lots of craft. You can see in the picture. And also, like most of the people may not know this, but Arunachal Pradesh is the only state that witnesses first sunrise in India. So there's a village, Dong Valley, in the first picture. This village witnesses the first sunrise in India. Like compared to the mainland India, suppose I'm in Delhi now, the mainland India. People in Arunachal Pradesh, they witness sunrise 1.5 or 2 hours earlier compared to the mainland India. The sunrise takes place at around 4:30 a.m. to 4:45 a.m. in the morning. Whereas if I compare it with Delhi, in Delhi it's like 6 or 6:15 in the morning, the sunrise takes place. Also, I have shown some places from Arunachal Pradesh. Zero is very famous in Arunachal Pradesh for its scenic beauty, and we have like in Zero they have wet cultivation of rice, and this is Tawang, the last picture. Oh my God. Excuse me. Okay. During the COVID time, when I was in third year, that time I had my first interest in pharmacognosy. Initially, I was thinking of pursuing my master's in MBA or pharmacology or pharmaceutical analysis. But when I was in third year, that time COVID hit, and during that time, this is the picture actually. During that time, while the world was on lockdown, I read an article about my university. Like in the article, it was mentioned that DIPSRO, Delhi Pharmaceutical University, along with Remedium Therapeutics, has developed a herbal based COVID herbal drug for coronavirus. And when I searched about this article, I found out that the main phytoconstituent used was this Solanum nigrum. And this Solanum nigrum is like it's daily consumed in Arunachal Pradesh, but most of the people are not aware about its medicinal potential. And also like in Arunachal Pradesh, many people uses eat plants on daily basis in veggies form, but most of them are unaware about its medicinal purpose or its phytoconstituents. They have no idea about it. So while I was looking for this Solanum nigrum, I found out that we consume this plant every day. And during that time, I had one thought, and also during the COVID time, Arunachal Pradesh was the only state that reported only one corona cases compared to other parts of India. So that after reading this article, I was like, what if most of the Arunachal people did get COVID but did not show symptoms because our regular meals were rich in greens like Solanum nigrum and there's more Clerodendron colebrucanum, Coptis theta, help body fight it silently. And I was wondering this like how we this also made me think like what if we have been eating these medicinal plants for so long that our bodies have become resistant to these effects, just like antibody resistance. So I was wondering like I asked my mother like do you know the medicinal effect of this plant? And my mother said no, I'm not very sure, but we use this if anyone is having a cold or sore throat or fever, we recommend this plant to eat. And I told my mother that my university has developed a drug on this. And it also made me wonder like maybe there are more plants we can discover we can validate the potential through scientific evidence. And in the photo, you can see that is my grandmother holding Coptis Tita. Coptis Tita is also very famous in Arunachal Pradesh. Like, if anyone is suffering from a cold, fever, cough, my grandmother and my mother, my father, they would recommend us Coptis Tita. Like, it's very bitter in taste. Like, it's very bitter. No one would be able to like uh, take it in take it without any spice. So what my mother grandmother used to do, my grandmother used to chop only 50 mg, 50, I guess 50 mg would be too much, 10 mg, 10 mg of chopped coptis tita mixed with dried bamboo shoot and some green chilies and salt. And if you have diarrhea, cold, fever, my grandmother would make this soup for us. And it's very bitter in taste, so most of the kids would not we would always avoid taking this. But now I know like it has so many medicinal potential. And also on the right side of the picture, that's my sister. I guess like most of the people might know about this plant, Mycenia migranta. This like this is anti-wound healing plant. Like if anyone gets any cut, this helps in this is very good for blood clotting. So we would just smash this plant with a drop of water and applied it on the wounded area. And also on the picture, you can see the boiled Solanum nigra. This is how we consume this boiled Solanum nigra. Like, also this made me wonder. We notice people we consume everything in boil. So if I compare to pharmacognosy, it's like decoction. We are making decoction in water, and water is very polar, and most of the compounds will be extracted out in the polar solvent. So this made me wonder, like we have been consuming so many plants the- uh, in its I'm not we have been consuming so many plants without knowing the potential of the plant, and in the decoction form. Let me go to my next slide. Yes, and during my masters, that is the reason why I opted pharmacognosy and phytochemistry for my masters. And during my masters, the first poster presentation I did was on my tribe, that is ethnobotanical wealth of Nisi tribe, the largest ethnic group of Arunachal Pradesh. So during this time, I got to introduce about ethnopharmacology. One of my teacher, Devesh sir, it was very good. He told me that you can do ethnopharmacology because you have potential to do it, and you are and I was also very interested in ethnopharmacology. I also told sir about about my interest in chlorophyll and how the main constituent was in our daily diet in Arunachal Pradesh. So my teacher suggested me to do presentation suggested this topic for me, and that is how I got interested in ethnopharmacology. And this was my first presentation, which I presented at ISAM. And after that, my second presentation was on the Coptis Theta. This plant is also very close to me because I have been consuming this soup when since very my grandmother would always suggest us to drink this because it's very good. It's good for digestive system. Also, my grandmother believes that. I'm not sure how much true it is, but we need to do scientific research on this. This might be a myth, so we need to prove this. So I presented my thesis on traditional use of Coptis tita wall, and also this plant is an endangered species, and it is not found. It is not like found anywhere. It's not available. It is grown in like most of the hilly areas where there's a lot of snowfall areas, and this is how Coptis tita looks. Dried rhizomes of Coptis tita. It is very bitter in taste, very bitter. And I have mentioned some traditional uses, like it's used in cold and cough, loss of appetite, stomach ache, dysentery, severe headache. And for my last presentation, I did this on traditional use of Clerodendron colubrucanium wall. Also, this plant is also my research topic for my master's thesis because after Solanum nigrum, Clerodendron colubrucanium is one of the plant that we use we consume on daily basis. So I was wondering, like, maybe also, like, if anyone is having like hypertension, diabetes. My grandmother and my mother, and I've seen my relatives also. They would recommend Clerodendron colebrucanum, the boiled, the decoction of Clerodendron colebrucanum. So I was wondering, maybe, and also I have searched so many research articles on this, like to see, like, does it work? Does it actually work for diabetes or not? But I could not find many research articles. There was articles, but for anti-helminthes and hepatoprotective, but for diabetes they were very on. I could only find one research paper on this, and I that is the reason I did my master's thesis on Clerodendron colebrucanum to validate its anti-diabetic effect. So this is the plant profile of the Clerodendron colebrucanum, and this is how the plant looks. We consume this, like, also, like, this plant, uh, the taste of this plant depends on the season also. Like, if you consume this plant on the month during the rainy season, it won't be bitter in taste. But after that season, if you consume it, the taste is very bitter. Like, we won't be consuming that this after the rainy season. But it actually tastes very good with boiled chicken. Wait, yes. And in our language, this plant is called poto. And like I have mentioned you, in Arunachal, the dialect differs according to your surname. So in my mother's language, like, my mother and father both are from Nisi tribe, but one calls it Poto and my father calls it Papuato. And these are the traditional usage of Clerodendron colebrucanum. It is used in, like, if anyone is having antihypertensive, the people would recommend, unnaturally people or notice people would recommend the decoction of this plant, Clerodendron colebrucanum. And for diabetes, abdominal pain, it is also believed to have a blood purifier, and it is also used for dysentery, cough, and fever. So, despite possessing such potential activity, very few studies has been conducted to, like, there was only one paper I could find for diabetes, anti-diabetic properties of this plant. Uh, yes, this was the rationale of my study. The main aim, as I have already mentioned, you Clerodendron colebrucanum has been mostly used for the treatment of hypertension, and it also possesses other potential activities like anti-diabetes, anti-helminthic, hepatoprotective, headache, and sore throat. Despite possessing such potential activities, very few research has been carried out in this plant to validate the traditional claims of anti-diabetic. And in my research, we aim to explore the pharmacognostic characters and justify the pharmacological basis in traditional claims of Clerodendron colebrucanum as anti-diabetic agent through the exploration of molecular modeling. So this were the literature review. I could only the latest literature review on this plant was in 2022, and after that, no research was done. These were my main aim and objective. So the main objective of my research thesis was to evaluate the pharmacognostical and pharmacological evaluation of Clerodendron colebrucanum for diabetic management through the exploration of molecular modeling. And and also I collected this plant. I did not collect it. I told my parents that I'm going to do my master's thesis on this plant, and my father and mother, they were very supportive, and they actually helped me. They went to, because this plant is not found in mainland India, Arunachal, so I had to ask my parents to collect it for me and send it, parcel it here. And my parents, they went to jungle, they collected this plant, they did the shadow dried, and after drying, uh, they packed it and courier it to my university location. And after that, I did the authentication of this plant from Delhi only, NISCARE. And I did the pharmacognostic evaluation of Sclerodendron colobrucanum, but I was not very happy because by the time because it takes 48 hours from Arunachal to reach Delhi to my university via train. It takes 48 hours. So by the time the plant reached here, the leaves of the plant was not very fresh, so I could not perform the pharmacognostic evaluation very not up to my expectation, but I did try my best because the leaves was already dried. And this is the extraction method, and for extraction we did conventional extraction method and non-conventional extraction methods. And for that, for conventional we did ultrasonication, and for non-conventional we did maceration and soxlation. And after the extraction, the extracts were the solvents were dried with vacuum rota evaporator and water bath. And after drying the extract were kept in vacuum oven. And also some of the extracts were dried, uh, were dried under minus 80 degrees Celsius. I think were lyophilized under minus 80 degrees Celsius. And after that, all the weights. After that, the further studies were performed. And also for extraction, we use RSM model coupled with BBD. This RSM model was acquired to optimize the extraction yield. And in RSM model, what actually happens in RSM model is it is a model to optimize the extraction yield, where you with the help of different variables. Like for example, if you go for maceration, either you take three parameters: plant material, shaking speed, and extraction time. So after putting the values in the software will give you a total number of runs, 17 runs. So you have to perform the 17 runs, and with with the help of those 17 runs you will be able to identify which parameter has the highest yield. For example, for Soxlet also, the plant material was taken from 10 gram to 20 gram in all maceration, Soxlet, and ultrasonication. And on the right side, you can see the optimized result. For maceration, for Soxlet, let's take the example of Soxlet. In the Soxlet extraction, the optimized temperature was found to be 50 degree, and the time was found to be 4 hours, and the plant material was 20 mg. So this simply means that if we kept the extraction time, Soxlet time at 4 hours and temperature at 50 degrees Celsius, the percentage yield were more compared to other parameters. In the see, uh, can you see this? Like in the software, if you put the lowest value and the highest value, for example, extraction time, the lowest time was 2 hours, and the maximum time was 6 hours. So we have put the value from 2 to 6. And for extraction temperature, the lowest temperature we have taken was 40 degree, and the highest was 65. And for plant material, the lowest was 10 gram, and the highest was 20 gram. So after putting the value, the software will give you total number of runs, the total number of 17 runs. And it will also give you the predicted yield. And you have to check if the actual yield is equivalent to the predicted yield or not. And likewise, and after completing all this 17 runs, you will be able to identify which parameter has the highest optimized yield. And uh, and after that you have to statistically prove using the analysis of variance. See, in the picture, if you see, the p-value was found to be less than 0.001, which means it was significant. The model we have chosen was significant. And the plant material extraction time and temperature, the correlation between these parameters were also found to be significant. like uh, like you can see here in the picture also, you will be able to see the residual versus the predicted, residual versus run. Hello? Okay. So like optimization and validation of predicted model for Soxhlet extraction method. So if you see in the picture also, if we take the extraction temperature and extraction time, the plant the yield was found to be optimized at a certain level. But if you increase the temperature more than the optimized temperature, it was found that the yield was uh, degrading if the temperature and extracted time were not optimized properly. And also in the picture, it shows that residual versus predicted. In the residual versus predicted, the residual should be randomized. Like if the residuals are not randomized, then it won't be significant. Like in the picture, you can see all the residuals were were found to be very random. So this proves that there was no biasness in the chosen design, box Benkin design. And after that, after all that, the physicochemical analysis and phytochemical screening were also performed. And for selecting the mm, for physicochemical analysis, all these parameters were performed. Total as value, in acid insoluble as value. These were all performed using the standard procedure. And also phytochemical screening tests were performed to identify the presence of secondary metabolites. Alkaloid tests were performed, amino acids, for carbohydrates, Burford tests were performed, and for flavonoids also zinc hydrochloride test and Sinoda test. And these were found to be positive, like clerodendron. This this preliminary qualitative phytochemical analysis proves that Clerodendron columbianum contains secondary metabolites in high amount. And after that, TLC were also performed. You can see the TLC. The first picture is was shown under visible light, and the second was at 254 nanometer, and also observed at 366 nanometer. You can see the color of the compounds, like uh, the yellow color presents that the compounds could be flavonoids, and the presence of blue colors, it could be sterols, or the compounds could be sterols. It's mentioned in here. The RF value were also observed for all the spots, recorded spots, and these colors were visible after spraying acetaldehyde reagent. And after that, TLC, HPTLC was also performed to confirm the presence of secondary metabolites. You can see the picture of TLC, HPTLC. This all spot represents the existence of secondary metabolites, either flavonoids, glucosides, alkaloids, or any secondary metabolites. With secondary metabolites, GCMS analysis of CC extract was also done, and it was found that the main compound identified was actioside. Actioside was also the standard compound for this Clerodendron colubrucanum. And after that, total flavonoid and phenolic content were also performed using for flavonoids and for total phenolic and flavonoid content, gallic acid and quercetin standards were performed. For phenolics, quercetin was taken as a standard to compare the presence of flavonoid in the Clerodendron colubrucanum, and same for this phenolic acid. For phenolic acid, we have taken gallic acid as a standard, and you can see in the in table 8, total phenolic content and total flavonoid content were found to be in the mentioned amount. And after that, in silico study was also performed. And for in silico study, Literature review was done through PubMed, Google Scholar to identify the hits, and in from GCMS, total 44 compounds were found to be present in this Sclerodendron colubrucanum, and out of which actioside was found to be the best ligand for protein PTB1B, and the docking score of ectoside was found to be minus 9.70, which was very good. The lower the docking score, the more the binding, the more good is the binding. So the ligand was prepared. The target protein was PTP1B, and the ligand was prepared using lick prep and Schrodinger using lick prep model and Schrodinger 9.6 version. And after actioside, there was one more compound which showed a very good docking score, osmontuside, which had minus 7.01 docking score. These two compounds were found to be, suitable for. These two compounds were found to be active for this protein PTP1P. And these are the pictures of showing binding highest scoring compound. The green one is the high. The green color shows the highest scoring compound, shown in the protein tyrosine kinase receptor. These are all the binding site of the compound, actioside and the protein PTB1B. And also for in vitro antioxidant evaluation, DPPH, methyl agent, FRAP, total antioxidant capacity, everything was performed. And it was found that this plant possesses some antioxidant property also. And after finding the antioxidant property, and for anti-diabetic activity, we did glucose diffusion method, hemoglobin glycosylation, glucose uptake by yeast cell at 25 glucose concentration, and alpha amylase inhibitory activity was also performed. But me and my guide, we were planning to perform animal activity also in vivo, but for that, after when we were doing the animal meeting, we could not get the animal mice for this study. But in the second round of the meeting, we almost got the animal, but my teacher said that it will be very late by the time we finish the in vivo study, and by the time the course will also be completed, so it's better not to go for in vivo studies. Let's just finish the study on in vitro studies. So that is the only reason we did up to in vitro studies. So for in vitro studies, yeah, also in vitro studies, after doing all this activity, it was found that the Sclerodendron colubrucanum, uh, this was compared to the standard medicine, metformin, available for diabetes. It was found to have activity, not as compared to the metformin, the generic metformin, but it was found to have anti-diabetic activity. Like it was able to it was able to reduce the alpha amylase enzyme. It had a sugar reducing property. So in the graph also you can see. So these are the findings of my anti-diabetic activity. The best was found in alpha amylase inhibitory activity. The best anti-diabetic activity was shown in this alpha amylase inhibitory activity. Also, the standard of this plant actioside was not available during the study. So most of the studies were not able to uh, we were not able to perform those activities. But apart from that, we managed to perform this available anti-diabetic activity. And in the alpha amylase inhibitory activity also, compared to the standard used was acarbose, and compared to acarbose, the CC leaves, Clerodendron colebrucanum leaves extract have shown low alpha amylase inhibitory activity. And this is the conclusion. And in conclusion, the overall activity shows that Clerodendron colebrucanum might be source of phytoconstituents. Leaf extract of Clerodendron colebrucanum was shown to have potent antioxidant and anti-diabetic properties in this research. And as a result, Clerodendron colebrucanum might be a potential source of antioxidant compounds. And based on my findings, this Clerodendron colebrucanum plant might be promising dietary supplements for managing diabetic this for metabolic disorders, pre-diabetic conditions. It can also be used to achieve modern therapy in diabetes. And like this could more study is needed, and obviously more study is needed to separate and identify active molecules from the crude extract, as very few, as I have mentioned, few study has been conducted on this plan, and scientific evaluation is also needed to justify the anti-diabetic properties of this Clerodendron colebrucanum. And I think my study was the second study on this plant. More studies are needed to conduct on this plant to prove that this plant is actually an anti-diabetic medicinal plant. And these are the some of the references that I have used for my studies. Thank you.